Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Mount Athletics podcast. My name is Adam Pohl. Great to be speaking to you here in the summer months here at Mount St. Mary's in Emmitsburg, Maryland. We've got some big news on the horizon. Mount St. Mary's Director of Athletics, Brad Davis, has inked an extension. We're going to take a quick break, but when we return, a conversation with Brad Davis as to what is upcoming and the state of Mount Athletics. That's all coming up right after this.
The time has come. The steak and cheese sandwich is back at Roy Rogers. Savory or spicy, make it yours with your favorite fixins. Go big and upgrade to a large drink and holster fry for the full cowboy experience. Get it while you can. Steak and cheese is here for a limited time only. See you soon at Roy Rogers.
We welcome you back to our Mount Athletics podcast. My name is Adam Pohl, and we're so happy to have with us the Director of Athletics, Brad Davis, who has now inked a new contract here to remain at Mount St. Mary's. It's got to feel a lot different than when you signed your first contract, but I know you're so happy, Brad.
Yeah, I'm thrilled. And sure, it's a lot different than it was 3 years ago at the Mount, and that's all good. You know, I mean, we are a department that is uniquely positioned, I think, for success at a mid-major level in the wild world of athletics. And that starts with our president, Dr. Jerry Joyce. It starts with our board of trustees. We have really great people at the Mount, and we have great support, and you need that alignment from top down to be successful nowadays. And, you know, I'm thrilled to work with the president that I work with. I consider him a friend, and it's special to have a leadership opportunity like the one I have.
There have been so many updates to facilities at the Mount since you stepped foot here a few years ago, whether it's the Lynn Phelan Robinson concourse, which was that first major step, the video board, which wowed Mount fans this year. But there's a lot else that's on the horizon as well.
Yeah, we got a lot going on with projects. So, you know, back to what you said, when I first got here, we really tried to fix some of the branding initiatives within the arena and ramp up game day. So, you know, the Lynn Phelan Robinson concourse was a successful project for us. It really modernized the arena. It was the first step there. We took out some of the doors and the glass, and we opened up the facility. And then we got the big video board this year and new sound system. And, you know, thanks to you and your team, just a brand new game day experience with these facility enhancements. And now this summer, we're starting on some bigger projects. So, you know, the Rooney Sport Performance Center, which has been talked about here for a long time, it's finally starting. You can see work going on outside my office right now.
Yes.
You know, we'll have an official groundbreaking when our student athletes come back in the fall. But it's going to be a brand new strength and conditioning facility. That's probably our worst facility right now. It's going to become our best. And that's a game changer that's going to help all of our student athletes. We're going to have a brand new sports medicine facility that'll support, you know, the health and wellness initiatives for our programs, a new fueling station as well within that space, and then some hospitality space there. And then we're going to take the old weight room and we're going to make it a locker room for baseball. And we're going to take the old sports medicine facility and we're going to make it a locker room for softball. So a lot of great additions there that will all be completed by fall of 27 or winter of 28, depending on kind of the step in the process. So it's about an $11 million project and a long time coming for sure. And then if you were with us over reunion weekend, we broke ground on a new rugby facility, you know, the Bolt Rugby Clubhouse, and fully raised $2.5 million to support our men's and women's rugby programs. And we'll be building a building up on Echo Field, you know, in the pitch that they play at, and replacing the Welcome Center that had been there, and then essentially doubling the size of that facility, and brand new locker rooms, video spaces, offices, wall of honor, and a really cool patio for game days. That'll be awesome. So there's a lot to do in the next year. But when our student athletes come back in fall of 27, the Mount's going to feel very different. And that's a credit to the support we've got from a philanthropic standpoint to raise all this money and to modernize our facilities and stay relevant in this world.
No doubt about it. And, you know, there's a worry in collegiate athletics about certain things contracting, the amount of sports you can have, the amount of athletes. But here at the Mount, we have seen a growth in how many sports we have. Flag football was new this year. We've also seen a growth in athletes. altogether, including spirit squads.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, I think all in all right now, about 40% of the university are playing athletics of some level, whether it's Division I or an affinity sport, or they're a spirit squad member. And, the NCAA limited us a little bit with roster caps. And,
Sure.
At a school that has fewer than 2,000 students, I couldn't just have 100 fewer athletes. So, my team and I worked really hard on what else can we do. And that led us to flag football. It led us to a competitive dance program. We've taken on rugby into athletics where they weren't part of the athletics world before. And, I think the results have been great. We'll have 25 women for flag football starting next fall.
Amazing.
We'll have almost 40 dancers by next fall, and that'll be year 3. We've done the same thing with cheerleading, where we've doubled the size of that program, and we'll be up to, I think, 35 cheerleaders next fall. So, if you were at a game this year, you could see the noticeable change in what our spirit squads bring on game days. And they just don't do it at game days. They do it for admissions events. They're a big part of the university spirit. And that's a big part of what we wanted to do, is we want athletics to represent the university proudly. And, we can be a major focal point of visibility and institutional pride, and having programs like this really help with that.
Of course, on-field success is a big piece of the puzzle. The winning, of course, now we're going to be in the Metro, right? We could talk about that, the Metro Conference. But winning this conference in men's basketball in your second year at the helm, only for the Mount St. Mary's, now 4 years in the conference. Just a huge, huge step. When you look traditionally, it's been hard for some of these schools that have taken a step up, here in the MAC, now the Metro, to be able to go to the NCAA tournament. For Mount St. Mary's, the Mountain has been used to going every 3 or 4 years. To be able to do that was enormous. And then, of course, this year, right at the end of our sports season, the success for outdoor track and field on campus provided such a unique celebratory moment here for our athletic program. These things all kind of coming together for Mount St. Mary's.
Yeah, I mean, I think first to talk about track and to host the MAC championship. It was still the MAC in the spring, but to host the outdoor track championship and see just how well our men's and women's teams did.
Yes.
Our men just crushed the field, ran away with first place, but our women took second when they were picked to not be close to second. So really remarkable performance for both of them at home, to see them celebrate here together and with all of us to be there. Not all of us would have had the opportunity to be there if it was on the road, and to just see that celebration is awesome. And for all the work that Jay Phillips does with those programs, the philosophy that he puts behind the program, you can see how it pays off. So just really rewarding experience. It's a great way to end the spring. It was our last home event was the track and field championship. So that was awesome. And then just looking back at basketball, which feels like a long time ago, but also doesn't at the same time. One of the biggest reasons I came to the Mount was because of the tradition of success in basketball.
Yes.
And that whether it was Division II or the NEC or then moving to the MAC, they always figured out a way to win. And it was a place that had this sustained success and a great fan base to support it. And I knew we could do that in the MAC. Did I know in my second year here with a first-year head coach? Probably not. Probably not the way I thought it would go. But I think it shows that the Mount has always done the right things to support basketball, and we haven't wavered in that as the world has evolved. And we hired a coach in Donnie Lind who understands this world and understands the Mount and understands that you can still have culture in 1 year and you can still develop players the right way. You just have less time to do it. And I think we're doing a really good job of that. And even this year, while we didn't accomplish what we wanted to, the reality is we were one layup away from beating the team who won the title in the MAC and almost beat Duke. So we could have been right there again with a very different roster, and we actually retained more off that roster going into next year. So we're excited to see where that goes in 2026, 27. But obviously trying to win in basketball is the most important part of our conference. We are a basketball centric league, and we'll continue to make the investments that we need to do to have success there.
And really, throughout the athletic program, I know that you have wanted to see competitive programs, and that's what you've seen. Women's lacrosse has been so steady. Women's basketball has been top 6 in the league 3 years in a row. There has been such a consistency, and you want to see that continue and even take another step forward.
Absolutely. I mean, we're always trying to get better, right? And some sports maybe don't have all the bells and whistles where they can get to the top of the league, but I think we've seen improvement in a lot of our sports. So, women's lacrosse is a sport that we think we can win, and we can win the league and compete for a title year in, year out. And, we won a regular season title 2 years ago. And this year we came in 4th place, and, we were right there where we probably could have been in second with one game being different. And, if Lowe, there's no better coach in women's lacrosse at our level than Lowe. So, we've had a lot of success there. I think we're going to see a big step in men's and women's soccer this year. This is Coach Brett Teach's third year here, and he's really rebuilt that program. This is Lisa's second year. Culture is outstanding in women's soccer and how she's rebuilt that. So excited to see where they go this fall. Men's lacrosse is finally starting to see the fruits of a really lengthy rebuild. And really, they were 2 goals away from coming in 4th place, and instead missed the playoffs and came in 6th. But they'll be a senior-heavy team this year with a lot of expectation. Our softball team, I think they tripled their win total from the year before. Missed the playoffs on a really random tiebreaker. I think they're where they need to be as well. Our women's tennis program went to the conference championship this year, and a year ago they won 2 games. So we're seeing progress in a lot of sports. Even in our first year of flag football, we went to the playoffs. We won a playoff game. I think we're going to continue to see continued progress as we move forward. And it is hard to sustain progress at this level. You have a great season, and maybe your best players are going to transfer, and that's okay. Part of what we have to do is reload and rebuild at the same time, and make sure we get student athletes who understand the mountain.
We are here with Director of Athletics Brad Davis on the day that he has signed an extension to remain in his role here at Mount St. Mary's. And Brad, it's interesting because you can say this even at the biggest schools in the country, but the lion's share of your athletes are not going to play professional sports and make a living playing the sport that they have come to this university to play. So academic success is paramount. Really the goal of this university as an institution from an academic perspective, it is a part of our student athletes experience, just as it is with those at the university that are not in athletics. And I think you're very proud to see what our student athletes are doing off of the court or the field.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm very proud of the effort that Justine Miller and her academic team put in every day to support our student athletes and, make sure they're eligible, make sure they're ready for tests, make sure they know what classes they need to enroll in to stay eligible. This is in my 3rd year. All 3 years we've had a higher GPA than non-athletes at the university. So this year's
that is remarkable.
It's a great statistic.
Remarkable.
When you consider all the work they have to put in outside of the classroom for their athletic opportunities. We continue to retain at a better level than what we're seeing for the rest of the student body. So our student athletes get it. To your point, most of them are not going to go pro and make a ton of money doing something else. So, it's our goal to still prepare them for life after college. And that, mom and dad's probably not going to be there when they're 24 years old to talk to their boss. And, we're trying to prepare them for those moments and make sure that they understand, when you get into the real world, here are some of the things that you need to be ready for. So whether we're doing that day-to-day in career development or even just trying to educate them on, look, if you transfer your 3rd school in 4 years, you may not graduate in 4 years. And you may have to stay somewhere for a 5th year that no one's going to pay for to get that taken care of. So, as the world changes, it's on us to make sure our athletes are educated in those changes.
And lastly, those changes for individual athletes, those changes are also for an athletic or athletes in general and athletic departments throughout the college landscape. How do you think the Mount is prepared to take on this ever-changing world that everybody always, now that I work, in college athletics, it's what everybody wants to talk to you about inside or outside of our world. How do you think we are ready to take these challenges on?
I think we're getting better every day. We did opt into the settlement. We are revenue sharing with select student athletes. At a school like the Mount, you're not going to have all the resources to do everything you'd like to do in that landscape. That wouldn't be fair to the rest of the university and some of the other priorities we have here. But I think we are prepared at our level, at a mid-major level, to continue to compete and to provide a good package to retain our best student athletes. And if they move on, that's part of it. And we're going to celebrate those successes. We have student athletes that have moved on to a bunch of Power 4 schools this year in a lot of different sports. And that's okay. That's their opportunity, and they've earned that. Now it's on us to bring in new student athletes that fit the Mount and understand what we have to offer and be grateful for the facilities and the resources that we can provide. So, we talk about all the time, how do we generate more revenue to help the bottom line and give our student athletes more resources? You and your team do a great job with that every day. But those are the things that ultimately matter right now. And it's important that our department understands what matters. And it's very different than what mattered 10 years ago. I joke with Lynn Robinson all the time, who sat in the seat for a long time. And, what she did day to day is so different than what I now have to do day to day. And she's probably grateful that she doesn't have to do that part of it. But that's the reality of the world. And you have 2 choices. You can lean into it and accept it, or you can fight it. And if you fight it, you're probably going to fall behind. And I think we've done a really good job here from the president on down of leaning in.
Well, congrats, Brad.
Thanks, Adam.
It's great to have you here at the Mount. And we wish you the best of luck here throughout this summer and, of course, into our next season.
Thank you so much for having me.
This has been our Mount Athletics podcast. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you again soon.